Welcome everyone. Good night. Good night. My name is Kimberly Gath, and I am the blogger, founder, YouTuber at petalsbloom.com, at least for the hour until maybe somebody else takes over. And so I'm happy to be here tonight. I am a bit tired, but I'm going to be pressing through. I think last year my word was consistency. And I think it continued into this year. Regardless of what happens, I just want to show up and be consistent, either in my newsletters, coming on YouTube, putting out YouTube videos, whether live or pre recorded. But my plan is to be available and be consistent. And I was, really encouraged. My husband John was listening to a testimony by Johnny McClurkin, and like, huh? Oh, Johnny. Oh, sorry, Donnie McClurkin. So confidently, and to this morning or this afternoon, he was telling me that Donnie McClurkin formed a band, and they practice. Is it every week, John? Every week for 5 years without any gigs. And then things, after a period of 5 years, things started to improve. So it gave me hope. I was like, let me just be consistent. I am like Donnie McClurkin and his band. Continuing, pressing on regardless, and along the way, having such wonderful testimonies. I went to a family event, and one of my cousins says, I watch you on YouTube. A guy, a younger male cousin. And he says, yeah, I put it on. I sit down on my bed and I watch your YouTube lives. I was like, oh, he said, I'm a subscriber. And I was like, oh, what a loving, supportive family member that I have there. I would not necessarily close. So we see each other once a year, if so many times. But it was just very encouraging to have some consistent people who are viewing and taking in and being blessed by my content. So, thank you for all the faithful viewers, both females and the guys. I am not forgetting you guys because I realize that a lot of you all watch the videos. Thank you. I appreciate it. And yeah, so today's topic, I'm not going to dilly daddle for too long. As I said, I am tired. And today's topic is, I think is very important, but I think all topics are important. I probably say this at the beginning of every meeting. But I remember when I was, I think maybe 16 or so, I had liked a guy who was not a believer. In case I mentioned it already, some of you all are joining for the first time and you never heard the story. But this particular topic ties in very well to that story. And yeah, I think we didn't have much in common, but we were attracted to one another, at least physically. But he was a nice guy. But the big thing, he was not a Christian. And I felt, I could influence him for Christ, etc. But from the get-go, I knew there was an attraction. As a matter of fact, he had liked one of my one of my classmates liked him, and then word got out that he found out I was cute. So then I'm like, oh, okay. He's a neighbor of one of my school friends. So a little romance started, and I remember Valentine's Day. He sent me several things. I'm like, what? But then I was listening to a program, and someone wrote a letter about should you be with an unbeliever, and the answer was very clear from the Word of God, and that was the end of it started to descend from that time, at least on my part. Yeah, so these things happen in life, especially imagine if you go to an event or you start going to the gym and you meet a guy who just looks good on the outside, and then you hear him speak. You never think for deep voices like my husband's own. and you hear him speak, and he's like, oh gosh, boy, that man. And then you begin to, converse and relate to one another and share about your life and your career goals, and you like his mind, how he thinks. You have intellectually stimulating conversations with this guy. So over time, what can very well happen is that you feel a tug on your heart that this guy, he has said that he's not a believer, but he respects everyone's religion, and you know clearly from the beginning that he is not a believer, and you have made it clear that you are. And of course, because you are a believer and a serious one at that, you want him to come to know Christ as his Lord and Savior. But the problem is you can't make that happen. So, how do you influence a man who is an unbeliever, he's a non Christian, without falling in love with him? And it's so easy to get your heart all wound up liking someone. It's hard enough for a believer when you meet someone that you're attracted to physically, and there's so many good things going for that person. It's hard not to fall quickly for someone, and maybe I should do a video on that, because it's really easy to fall quickly and become too close too soon with someone to that may not necessarily be good for the relationship or the friendship moving forward, if it forms rapidly without you having without being able to think clearly and be able to make a wise decision and to discern if this person is really the one for you, or even to get the input of others, which I always talk about. All right. So today's topic is how to influence an unbeliever for Christ without falling in love with him. So if you don't watch it, if you don't protect your heart, as it says in, I think, in Proverbs chapter 4:24, it says, guard your heart with all diligence, for out of it spring the issues of life. So if you don't guard your heart, these are some possible outcomes that might happen if you um, unwisely interact with an unbeliever. You could actually fall in love with the person. Okay, so you could end up marrying the person, which we all know that the Bible says do not be unequally yoked with unbelievers for different reasons. I have a video on that. You can check it out. Another thing is your heart and mind could become tormented because you are, on one hand, your emotions are telling you that this is the perfect guy. You get along so well. I mean, this is like, he has all the qualities or most of the qualities that you want in a husband, except that he's not a believer. And then on the other end, you have believed strongly and you have come to the conviction that you will not marry an unbeliever. But this is the guy that you are falling in love with. So you can put yourself in a way that you feel you are very conflicted, because you know to do one thing, but your heart is telling you something else. Another thing could happen is your attachment becomes so strong that it becomes difficult for you to become emotionally available to another man who really might be better fit for you to be a husband, a believing man. All right. So maybe years could go by and you're thinking, okay, we are still friends, you're in love with this guy secretly or maybe openly. And you're hoping and praying year after year, 5 years has passed, 8 years has passed, and he's still not a believer, but you cannot love anybody else because your heart is tied up with him. So it's hard to love somebody else, but you can't go with this guy because you know that you'll be disobeying God. And another thing could possibly happen is that this unbeliever has a hard time letting go of you as well. So when we make decisions, it's not only for ourselves, but it impacts others around us. And since we're talking about an unbelieving guy, your decisions will impact him. So I'm asking you, and I'm doing this live, so that you will tread very carefully, cautiously, and wisely when it comes to unbelieving man. So of course you want to influence him for Christ. But a way of doing it, a wise way, and there's a foolish way of doing it that can cause a lot of heartache and heartbreak. And I like this quote by Thomas Edison. He says, a good intention with a bad approach often leads to a poor result. And, there people talk about missionary dating and dating a person with the naive, erroneous view that by dating that person, God will use you to bring that person to Christ. Now, God does not need anybody's help to bring an unbeliever to Christ. Okay? So Jesus is the one who can help him to come to Christ. All right. So the first thing you need to be doing, or one of the steps to take, is to just make it a point, ask God for an opportunity to share the gospel with him. There's nothing wrong with you as a woman sharing the gospel with someone else who is a guy, even if it's a guy that you're interested in. I mean, at least physically attracted to. You can share the gospel with him. And there are so many tools available for us now. You can share your personal testimony and invite him. Like, would you be interested in inviting Christ into your life? So the Bible makes it clear that we are to go into all the world and preach the gospel and make disciples of all nations. And whoever God has placed in your life, he wants us to be a light to that person. Okay. So the second thing is allow a Christian man to disciple him. Now, I have been, discipling women for at least 25 years. And from time to time, you would hear, a young woman or more mature woman innocently and naively thinking that she can disciple a younger guy. And I don't think it's a good idea because, if the person is and there's no one else to disciple that guy and that person is much younger, then possibly. But you also have to consider that younger men could very well have a crush on you. And then things get, you could sidetrack things and things can get very shady and rocky because this person is in love with you and it can just get very complicated. So you try to stay away as much as possible. Pray that God will bring guys into his life to really disciple him and mentor him, etc. So a man generally and will always do better at discipling other men. And you want to be able to encourage him, connect him, pray for him that God will bring a godly man into his life to disciple him. So here are some benefits of man to man discipleship. So him being discipled by another man will help him, will teach him how to lead as a man. It will challenge him to do what is uncomfortable but necessary in things in life that he needs to do as a man. Another man could teach him how to war, how to be a warrior. Another man could model to him the important role that men play in the body of Christ. Another man is in a better position to correct him when he's wrong and to show him even simple things like how to pursue a woman, how to lead a family if he's a married man discipling him. A man could learn a lot from other men. It can demonstrate to him how to be an honorable husband, how to wrestle with principles, just like a man to man. Like my grandfather, when he was younger, he would go into this square, and I think that square, a time I went to meet him for something, or maybe I just was around and I saw him. These men are debating day in, day out, and it's just mainly men. So men like that kind of thing, and that helps them to grow. And then it will also show him when that time comes how he can be a good father, whether to another man biologically or spiritually. If he decides to mentor other young men or other men, this is he become like a spiritual father in a sense. Okay, so men discipling men, it's a better way to go. So if you are concerned about influencing a man, I would encourage you, my sisters, that you do not take it upon yourself to disciple him. Trust God, that God is big enough. God has a lot of humans, a lot of Christians in the world, male as well, who can disciple him. At least one he needs. Okay. All right. So as soon as possible, connect him with a faithful male follower of Jesus who will take that role very seriously, and pray that God will surround him not only with one guy, but on the whole, that God will surround him with male influence. And another thing that, if he has issues with other men, pray for his healing and his deliverance. So we have a situation right now that I find a lot of men just feel more comfortable being around women. And I personally think it's because they need some kind of a healing, right? And yeah, so pray for him. If he has issues with other men, his solution is not you. The solution is not you. The solution is praying that God will heal him so that he can have normal, healthy relationships with other men so that he can be the man that God wants him to be. Only a man can help another man to be a man, not a woman. All right. So Proverbs 27:17 says, as iron sharpens iron, so one person sharpens another. And I mean, we women will sharpen men and men will sharpen us. But as I keep on saying, a man is in a better position to disciple another man. The third thing is, in order to be wise in influencing an unbelieving man without falling in love with him, is to limit your interactions with him. So I don't know if you've ever heard about the proximity effect. It talks about the more you interact with a person, say that unbelieving man, the more you will notice the things that you have in common and the qualities that you like about him. And at the same time, you'll also begin to ignore the things that you don't like. And before long, you're wondering, like, does it really matter if he's not a Christian? At least he wants to, at least he tolerates me and my religion. He's willing to come to church with me. He's willing to accept what I accept. All right. So these things could happen. And this reminds me of a movie I watched last night. It was on our local television, not without my daughter. Now, if just watch that movie, and then you would realize that what Christ said about not being unequally yoked unbelievers is very, very wise advice. Watch that movie. It's old, but oh my goodness, that movie was good. And it's based on a true story. So, therefore, if you want to protect your heart, limit the amount of time that you communicate with that guy. So, there are triggers for love and attraction, and these can be things like smell, height, smile, voice, and even shared experiences. So, falling in love is really very easy. I mean, I've had many, many crushes in my life, and whew, it's not easy. It's pressure. All right. Oh my goodness, you can't think straight. You can't be yourself. You can't sleep properly. You're only thinking about these people. Not necessarily same time, but it's like, oh my goodness. It's very draining if you have crush upon crush upon crush. All right. So psychologists call this a love effect when you can when you could fall in love with someone based on just the proximity. So I know you probably if a person ends up on a desert island together, a man and a woman, maybe initially they hated one another, but after maybe a year or two, they might actually fall in love. Just because they've had no choice but to be around one another, and then slowly the things that irked you initially they become insignificant when you are in close proximity to someone. So I don't know if you've ever experienced where you met someone, maybe a co-worker initially, the person was just irritating and frustrated you, and over time you just end up liking them. All right, so these things happen. This is reality of life. The fourth thing is be careful what you share. So I've attended countless conferences, seminars, retreats, and I'm always surprised that after those um, days together, and generally it's more like maybe like maximum like 3 nights and 4 days, and people remain friends. Some people marry one another, and even furthermore, sometimes you don't even think a person is close, and next thing you hear, They are someone else's maid of honor, groomsman. I mean, like, what? I didn't even know they knew one another. And it was just because they were in a conference for a period of time and they spent umpteen hours sharing life together, sharing stories, and they just end up becoming good friends. So be careful how much time you spend with that person and how much you share. If you share deeply with someone, the bond generally begins to form. Now, I have a Bible study and I'm discipling about 7 women right now. And as time goes on, we are becoming closer because I make it a point to be vulnerable and they are also vulnerable. So over time, we are becoming trusting one another and growing to love one another and know one another on a deep level. And with a male and female relationship, and if there's any level of attraction, it is you can fall in love with that person easily. So be careful what you share. Do not share deeply with an unbelieving man that you're trying to share Christ with. All right, he's not a Christian as yet. And even if he becomes a Christian soon, you need to give that man time so that you will know if his roots are deep in Christ or not. Just because a person says a prayer and maybe they sincerely give their life to Christ, you just never know when a person will really begin to grow and grow significantly enough where they are capable of being a good husband and a good father. You just never know what kind of issues he has, and you just never know if that growth will be very, very slow pace, or the man might just take off and really grow in his walk with the Lord and become a true follower of Christ in a short space of time. You just never know. So even if that guy you're interested in comes to Christ, maybe in a month's time, please, next 2 months, please do not be in a relationship with a man. Let the man become grounded first. He will not know everything, but let's see if he really is serious in his walk with the Lord. Let's see if you need to see if he's fertile soil. Okay? So the verse that I mentioned, it says, above all else, guard your heart, for everything you do flows from it. The fifth thing is know what you find attractive. Um, we had a workman come by us when my parents were doing some work at their house. And I kid you not, one of these workmen came. And that man, I don't know, but whew, he's not necessarily my type. But I don't know, something about him was very attractive. Maybe it was his physique. I don't know. Maybe it was his confidence. Maybe it was his confidence. I was like, wow, boy. So you need to know what you find attractive in guys on the whole. Like I mentioned, I love a deep voice. And my husband has a he's saying, oh, he's singing a deep voice. My husband, when we got to talk, oh, it was just such music in my ears to hear his lovely, deep, manly voice. No, I like that. And I remember another guy I liked and who had liked me, but his voice, oh my goodness, I think it was annoying. Although he had a lot of other good qualities, but for the love of me, I couldn't get over the voice. But please don't be petty like me if you can tolerate it. It was not a big deal. Maybe it might grow on you, but I'm very glad that my husband has a lovely, deep voice that I like to hear the sound of his voice. I like to hear the sound of it. All right. So you need to know your own vulnerabilities. And so not all unbelieving men that you will find attractive, but some will have qualities that will make you weak. All right. So some of the qualities that might make you weak are you will know yourself, right? Intelligence. So sometimes you see two persons and you're thinking, like, what did that man see in that woman? Or what did that woman see in that man? And when you hear their story, it was because of their intelligence. It's a thing, okay? And I myself like intelligence, okay? Right. Intelligence. Courage. A man who is very articulate in his speech. A man who is well read, Like if you are a woman who is into reading and you meet a man who is knowledgeable on many topics and he knows a lot and he's well read, then even if he's not a believer, you might think, oh my goodness, whew, I love to hear him speak. He's so wise, so much knowledge, so much wisdom. All right. He could be a man who is very adventurous and a risk taker, and that's the kind of man that you're interested in. Maybe he just smells good. Whatever cologne he invests in, it was like when you stick a whiff and when you smell it, it's like, oh gosh, you get weak. All right. Maybe he reminds you of your father in a good way. And this is making you think, okay, yeah, have warm feelings. You might begin to have warm feelings toward him because of the fact that he reminds you of your father, who you love very dearly and who you really admire and respect. Another thing is confidence. Like for men and women both, we like the opposite sex. We like someone like confidence in the opposite sex. Maybe you have a thing for tall men. Maybe you have a thing for hairy men. Maybe just his physique. He's just so muscular, and you find like or maybe he just comes across as very masculine, and you like that in a man, masculinity. Maybe he's just physically strong. He's chivalrous. Maybe he's a popular guy. He gets along well with people. He makes friends easily. He is not a sweet talker. I'm not say that. Maybe he just has a way with people, and people love him and he knows how to influence people by his charming ways. And you like that. You admire that. He's a fitness enthusiast. Maybe he's just plain wealthy. Some women just wealth is sufficient. It doesn't matter what a man looks like. As long as he has money and he could spoil her, she's like, that's a done deal. That is the man for me. Or he's highly opinionated and you like the fact that he's not willing to back down on his opinions. Or he's a skillful lyricist like my husband. My husband has a way with words and I love it. All right. So you need to be aware of your own vulnerabilities and the kind of things that make you weak when it comes to men. And and then of course, you need to know the time of day that you begin to interact with, that you have conversations. Like the night times for me are like the most romantic times. So if I were to engage with trying to influence a non-believer in the night, that will not be a good thing. I need to be in the day where I can see clearly and think clearly. Right? So talking to an unbeliever any night would have been a no-no for me. Sorry. And some of you women during the menstrual cycle, you are not in a position to be vulnerable with anybody or close to anybody because you might just fall in love with a man right out, outright, just because it's during the time of your menstrual cycle. So my advice is to know yourself, your own weaknesses, and know the kind of things that make you be in awe of a man. The sixth thing is how to influence a man without falling in love with him is prayer. God is the one who has the power to save that man. So God might use you to point him to Jesus, but only God has the power to save. And if you're serious about this particular friend, let's call him a friend, coming to Christ, you need to make it a matter of consistently praying for him, because only God can save. And one of my favorite verses is the prayer of a righteous man availeth much. So don't just think of like you have all the words and you just need to be there for him and spend hours counseling him of whatever woman problem, parent problems, financial problems he has. You don't need to be doing all of that. You could share the gospel, befriend at arm's length, and pray for him and let the Holy Spirit draw him to Christ. God does not need your help. God did not need your help to die on the cross and to reach from the dead. So therefore, God is quite able, as you do your little part in sharing the gospel, God could do the rest in saving that person. And the seventh point is um, we need to consider the guy's feelings. Women are born with a very maternal desire to nurture others, and when it comes to adult men, our desire to nurture and rescue men can cause real problems. So, although you have it and it is clear in your head that you are just there, giving him a meal, listening to all his woes, just being there, if a present counselor, you need to be aware that um, that this might not be the best thing for his heart because he might actually begin to fall in love with you. So, although it might be clear that he's not the one for you, that you have no interest in him whatsoever because he's not a believer, and that your only intention is for him coming to Christ, you also need to be mindful that he has a heart, and certain things that you do might cause his heart to start to beat quickly when it comes to you because of your loving, nurturing, attentive ways toward him. So he can fall in love with you if you don't erect boundaries, not only to protect your heart, but to protect his heart as well. Okay, so you need to be very careful of the things and the kind gestures that you will do toward him in your desire to influence him for Christ. Okay, maybe leave that to an older woman who like a granny. Maybe she could provide some food for him when he has no food. Right? And if you are being kind to him, just make it very clear that you also give that slice of cake to every other team members if he's a co-worker of yours, so that he will know that you're just a kind-hearted woman and not necessarily all this attention is on him because you have a secret crush on him. Okay, so please remember that whatever you do, protect your heart, protect your testimony, and also be loving and kind enough to protect his heart as well. Okay, so if you desire to influence an unbelieving man, and that's a good desire, but you just need to be able to um, put some distance in terms of, as I mentioned, and because otherwise, attraction could develop very easily, and then begin to your decision making becomes all very muddled and unclear and obscure because you are beginning to fall in love with him and vice versa. All right. So, this is my words of advice for today: how to influence an unbelieving man without falling in love with him. And I'm just letting you know it's both ways. You are doing things to protect your heart, but you're also making these implementing these tips in order to protect his heart as well. Because, when a person is now coming to Christ or a young believer, it is just so much better that you don't complicate the matter with somebody him being in love with you or you being in love with him. Just don't complicate the matters. Let him just be able to focus on his walk with the Lord. And although he might have a crush on you, but if you don't fuel that, then he will be able to say, he might, be able to channel his attention on growing in his walk with the Lord, which is the best thing that you could allow him to do. Grow and focus on his walk with the Lord if he comes to Christ, or if he's just seeking the Lord without you complicating matters with having this man in falling in love with you. I mean, if you're an attractive woman and you're kind, even if you don't do any of these things, a man can still fall in love with you. But I'm just saying, you're doing your part. All right? You do your part, keep at a distance, a safe distance, share the gospel, keep at a safe distance emotionally, and allow the Lord to work in his life and allow God to use other men to influence him. So that is it for tonight's talk. And yeah, so I think if you have any comments or questions, feel free to write me at kimberly@petalsbloom.com. And next, so the module Made for Love in the Irresistible Godly Woman coaching program we're entering our second week on Wednesday. Oh, and it's going so good. I'm totally enjoying it. And I think based on the feedback, I know the women are also they're very grateful to be just to be a part of the group and to learn with one another. And so it's been good. And the next module which you can join is understanding Adam. That's for 4 weeks. And if you are interested in enrolling, let me know. Now, I know there are several persons who have already told me that they want to join at that point. So write me at kimberly@petalsbloom.com if you're interested in enrolling in understanding Adam. And following that is blossoming beauty blueprint. Then the one on sexual purity, the one on being a domestic queen, and the last one is about finances. Yes, so I think it's good. And I really, several women are just telling me, Kimberly, I want you to teach me how to make bread. So there are some women, and these are professional women or young women who are students who are doing degrees. They want to learn like basic homemaking things. I'm like, oh, that's very refreshing. All right. So take care, everyone, and have a good evening. Bye bye.